nurse, full of life and promise, who was betrayed not by a stranger, but by someone who worked right beside her. A crime born of envy, a trail of false suspects, and a shocking truth finally revealed by a single, forgotten camera. Clara Jennings was just 26 years old. To her patients, she was more than a nurse. She was a lifeline. Colleagues described her as vibrant, hardworking, and always smiling, even during the longest shifts. She wasn't just good at her job, she was exceptional. Patients specifically asked for her. Doctors trusted her judgment, and supervisors were already talking about fast-tracking her to a senior role. But what Clara didn't know was that her very success had already painted a target on her back. Working in the same ward was Lydia Marsh, 34. Lydia had been at St. Haverly General for over a decade. She was competent, but quiet and often overlooked. While she had waited years for recognition, she now watched as Clara, barely 2 years into her career, was celebrated at every turn. At first, Lydia's bitterness hid beneath polite smiles. But co-workers began to notice sharp remarks. Strange tension during shift changes and an uneasy rivalry. Some brushed it off as normal workplace jealousy. But for Lydia, it was far more dangerous. One late evening, Clara stayed behind after her shift to complete patient records. The next morning, she was discovered lifeless in the supply room. A colleague found her slumped against a cabinet, unresponsive. At first glance, it looked like sudden collapse from exhaustion. But then came the inconsistencies. Clara's ID badge was missing. A restricted sedative vial was unaccounted for, and investigators noticed a faint injection mark on her arm. The hospital was in shock. How could this happen to one of their brightest young nurses? Detectives moved quickly, but the case grew messy. Rumors flooded the hospital corridors. Some whispered Clara had been romantically linked to a doctor. Others speculated drug misuse. One anonymous tip even claimed a staff member had seen Clara arguing days before her death. Theories piled up, evidence was twisted, and soon 2 innocent staff members were arrested. Both were later released due to lack of evidence, but the damage was done. The hospital became a place of fear, where every staff member suspected the other. All the while, Lydia played the role of the grieving colleague perfectly. She attended vigils, comforted Clara's family, and even hinted to investigators that certain co-workers seemed suspicious. With the investigation stalling, one detective decided to recheck every CCTV angle in the hospital. For days, the footage showed nothing unusual. But then, from a dusty, rarely used basement hallway camera, the truth emerged. The grainy video showed Lydia Marsh, just minutes before Clara was last seen alive. Lydia walked into the supply room carrying a small black bag. 20 minutes later, she reappeared. Her hands were visibly wiping down surfaces, and she clutched something wrapped in paper before discarding it into a waste chute. When investigators searched the hospital waste system, they made a chilling discovery. Fragment of syringe in Clara's missing ID badge. Toxicology confirmed what many had suspected. Clara had been injected with a lethal dose of a missing sedative. The evidence was undeniable. Lydia, the grieving co-worker, the woman who had cried at vigils and whispered suspicions about others, was the killer all along. Her motive? Pure envy. She confessed that Clara's rise made her feel invisible, unworthy, and discarded after years of service. Killing Clara, she believed, would restore balance and stop her from losing everything. Instead, it exposed Lydia as a murderer. Clara Jennings dreamed of a life dedicated to saving others. But jealousy ended her story far too soon. What makes this case so haunting is not just the murder itself, but the betrayal. Clara was not killed by an intruder or a stranger lurking in the night, but by someone she trusted, a woman who stood beside her, day after day, wearing the same uniform, walking the same halls. In the end, envy turned a place of healing into a crime scene, and the greatest danger Clara faced came not from outside the hospital walls, but from within them.